Well, this is a very important Zoomer Times interview for me. And for everybody else who's been reading Boomer Times and Darwin Porter's incredible, I'll call them columns, but there's so much more. I don't know anybody in this world who knows as much as Darwin does about celebrities and things that happened in the past, because he has this memory and the storage that is so complete, and he is so enthusiastic. Even after all these years, he had a big life down in the Keys and the Miami Herald in Miami. But his column, we're so privileged to have this column every single month for so many years. But more than that, Darwin has been on the radio. He was getting up at 5 in the morning every Saturday morning. So what I'm going to do before we start talking, I want to introduce you to someone that is so special in his life and my life, and his name is Danforth Prince. Hello, Danforth.
Nice to be here. Happy to Zoomer with you.
Yes, and Darwin Porter and Danforth are quite a team, and we appreciate they live in Staten Island and in this fantastic home, historic home. And this is the first time we've actually had Danforth showing his face. We always see Darwin's face in the column.
I am happy to be here briefly. I am thrilled that you want me to even show up. And
we wanted you to show up, and then we're gonna let you then kind of ease out and go do what
absolutely.
you have to do.
Andy Warhol said that half the value of success is just showing up, and I've managed to do that for years.
You're so great. Yeah, and
Thank you to your audience. Thank you, Dan. I'll see you all later. I'm here for help. Bye. Mwah.
All right. Thank you, Dan. So, Darwin, welcome to the first Zoomer Times TV show with us together.
I am honored.
We have a lot of history, Darwin. And
I'm really, really honored to be here. And in a way, I want to send my praise of you, because I oddly enough want to talk about fake news today. But before I do, I want to congratulate you. I've been reading now the Boomer Times for years. You have helped senior citizens amazingly, and now you're going with them through a difficult time. But you also brought some entertainment, meaning life can always be about going to the medicine cabinet, and you brought entertainment too.
Right.
And you have reported the true news, and the America is now getting ready for the biggest barrage of fake news in world history. And I'm amazed at what's already out there. So at first I had to say, you are the real thing. Now I will tell you about some stories that are not real. And we began with 2 days ago, our friend Donald Trump Jr. Posted on his Facebook that Joe Biden is a pedophile. And it's all in the New York Times. It is totally false. But in other words, the campaign of 2020 has begun. And this morning, our president has suggested that he was part of a murder that took place years ago in his congressional office. And he also signaled the road is going to get rougher and tougher. Now, what we don't know is, will the Democrats respond in kind? You know, they can make up all sorts of stories too. And so is it going to be about which one can tell the biggest lie or commit the biggest libel? Because that's what most of this is, it's libel.
Let me interrupt you a moment and ask you a question. You've been around a long time, as we're just the same age. This has always gone on? Is this new?
Oh, it's never gone on like this. And I'll tell you why. Because suddenly everyone has an opinion. But back when I started the Miami Herald, you could only, if you get your opinion, if you were one of the readers, send a letter to the editor. For 1 month, I helped the desk when the editor of the editors of the letters was on vacation, and I was able only to pick up 6 or 8 out of maybe 100, and they were usually a bit respectful. Sometimes they were critical, but now it's like, you are a pedophile, you are a murderer, or you're a Russian spy. It's a new level out there, and people are just posting one thing after another. Let me give you some things that are going out now and being read by really thousands and millions of people. First, a survey just came out. There are at least 8 or 10 million people who believe the moon landing was fake, that it was shot in Burbank, California. Well, Hollywood studios could have done that. I'm amazed that 8 to 10 million people, and of course, the sighting of Elvis, that Elvis is dead, but people have been kept running into him in the grocery store, and they see him, and those were sort of harmless. But now some very lethal things. Let me give you another example. Millions of people now believe that Hillary Clinton is dying of a brain tumor, and as soon as she's in the grave, Bill Clinton will marry Monica Lewinsky.
No kidding.
Yes. And now
please.
People really believe this. This is not made up. You know, poor Hillary was said to have run a child prostitution ring from this pizza joint in Washington. And actually a man took a gun and was going to go in and shoot up the place, like one of those massacres, like Parkland, Florida. I mean, people do believe these things, and it's just amazing, and it's going to be, America is going to be saturated with this kind of news. So it's good to have people like you around who actually believe that truth matters.
And to have people like you that make sure that they know that. So I have one more question about this. These people then, are they insane that start these rumors? Why do they do this?
Well, you know, many people actually believe what they're doing. Most of the people I know can tell the wheat from the chaff, but a lot of people can't. And for example, there's a story out now, and it was really started by the president, that Nancy Pelosi is, he called her mentally off balance. And then immediately admirers then picked up, suddenly we have her in a Baltimore insane asylum for 3 years. We have her taking a knife and trying to stab her father. She loved her father very much. She was from Baltimore, but Miss Pelosi is not, she never tried to kill her father, and she never tried she was never a part of a mental institution. But yet now that you can find that all over the web. It's not true, but people will believe it. I mean, we have a lot of trouble going on now, but in addition to that, news people have to be very, very careful of some of the stories that they're printing. Fortunately, we do have some very good channels that tell the truth. Perhaps one doesn't, but we have some that actually tell the truth. And particularly, well, if I believe some of these things, I would invite you to fly to New York for a Clorox cocktail, maybe a Clorox martini. Does that sound enticing to get you up here?
And New York, but most of this happens in New York, or does it happen in California? Because those are the two states, right?
Every state in the union. Oh. Everybody who has a computer is posting something. I mean, for example, let me give you a personal, because I do so many books, I often end up, let me give you an example. I did a book on Laurence Olivier and Scarlett O'Hara, Vivian Lee. And the Daily News on its third page ran a big picture and of Scarlett O'Hara, and that this book had come out. Well, I was writing a book. It came out in January, not September, but this article came out, and then people started posting reviews of it and attacking me, including the son of Laurence Olivier. And that's just another example. Many people, you know, for example, don't even read a book and they start attacking it because they just hear it's out. That happened. There was a catalog that advertised that I was writing a book with Danforth prints called Twisted Sisters, the story of Olivia de Havilland, who is still alive. She'll soon be 106 years old.
Really?
Yes, and she's the longest star still living from the golden age. And her sister, Joan Fontaine. Now, I knew Joan Fontaine. In fact, she read my books and I loved her. And when she worked for when she did advertisements for us, she came to New York. And so the book was put in a catalog, and then we heard from Miss de Havilland's lawyers because someone had told her that I was going to favor the bad sister in the book. Well, all of a sudden, I got all these reviews of a book. Now, one page has not even been written, and people are writing. Like some people said, do you know what that moron published on page 71? The moron hadn't even written page 1. And all these reviews came out on a book that did not exist. That was just my own personal experience, you know.
So Darwin, how do you deal with this? Do you just laugh it off and you just know that this is human nature? You've been around so long, and I really ought to talk a little bit about your history, but it's so interesting. I hate to take the time to do that. Maybe towards the end, we'll just tell them all the, I don't know, is it 30 books now that you've written about celebrities? A lot of them. I have all of them.
You're wrong. 57.
57. Oh my gosh.
But what was amazing is I was a late bloomer in that field. I spent most of my life, as you know, for the Foreword Guides. I traveled the world. Of course, you know, being able to travel the world, I picked up incredible stories because, for example, when I started out, movie stars were having to make movies abroad. They could only live in the United States for 1 month. Otherwise, they would hit the United States had a 92% tax rate on the very wealthy. Those were the days. Yes.
Oh, so that's why.
Yeah. So if Cleopatra was being filmed in Rome with Elizabeth Taylor, shacked up with Richard Burton, while Eddie Fisher was moaning, I have a book on Rome, so I went to Rome to update my book. But so I gathered my material. For example, we just finished a book on Judy Garland, and I had a book on Copenhagen. That was her last concert. So I was able to turn the travel guides to my benefit, at least for my future profession, which would be a biographer and not a. Could you imagine how travel books must be doing today?
No, yeah, right. No, but I was thinking about what you just said. So I want everyone to understand something. We're so privileged because every time a new book comes out that Darwin Porter writes, we feature it in Boomer Times. We're waiting with bated breath for the Judy Garland book, but he has spent a lot of time. He said it's one of the most powerful books he's ever written, and he, of course, he knew these people. That's what. See, this is what makes it different. A lot of people write about people, but they don't even really know them. But Darwin has known every one of the celebrities, and his books are, you can't put them down. They have pictures, and I know that Danforth Prince helps get those pictures in there, and it's quite a machine, and we're so privileged not only to, we've had him on the radio, Darwin writes columns on the radio, and now we have on Zoomer Times. I'm so thrilled. This is
You know
and I
what?
are virgins with this now.
What was interesting? What was interesting is, of course, I came to New York, Madison Avenue. We specialized in hiring movie stars. I got to meet everyone, but it all began in Florida because I got to meet Eleanor Roosevelt and Harry S. Truman. And I figured if I could interview and deal with them, then I could deal with Elizabeth Taylor and Marilyn Monroe, because I started at the top with two people I admired greatly, especially.
It's such a privilege, Darwin, yes, to be able to do that. And people respected you. That's why I think you were able to interview all the people that you did. You were not like some people are now in the press. You were so gentle, and you were so smart and articulate. And I've asked you on the radio before about this, and how do you must have a fantastic memory, how you remember every little detail.
Well, it is amazing that I do. But for example, I could tell you exactly where I was in the 50s. I can even tell you where I was in the 40s. But as I get older, in 1977, or was it 1976? It's funny.
Too bad. 1 year.
Because also, when you travel the world, you wake up, you say, oh my God, am I in Russia or is this Africa? That you sort of get confused on the jet. Now, I don't know what's going to happen to the travel industry. It's going to be a very difficult time. The airlines, everything is changing. Now, people, fortunately, many of them, and this is good for me, but maybe they have time to read books.
Yes.
Like one man just wrote from Alaska, and he said, I only read 2 of your books, but now I want a dozen more because I'm sitting up here.
That's right. That's right.
I know, maybe Sarah Palin didn't invite him over for tea or something.
Right. No, but I agree with you. So, and what's happened, and you probably know this, that the graduations and all, they're all being done on Zoom. And
Yes.
So Zoom has become, I don't know in our lifetime what we would equate that. Maybe it was television when radio was on and then television came, they said, oh, how can that go? But Zoom is the new wave.
Yes, it is. The only thing is, my mother told me never to be photographed after I was 30. So we're supposed to follow our mother's advice.
Not with that. No, I want people to know who you are. You're charming. You're beautiful. You have all the characteristics of a gentleman who does amazing work. That's why it's important that you are on, so people know just what a smart man can do. Let me tell you something. When you see our next issue, June, you'll love this. We're featuring a man who I think he's either 98 and he's just had a baby. And so it's showing that, he's from India. You'll see him on the cover.
Is this fake news?
It's coming. No, it's not fake news. You'll be reading about it. So see, men like you do much better than women. Women kind of lose it after a certain age, but you look better than ever.
Oh, no. I was a child model. That was my era.
Yeah, but
growing up in Miami was wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, Miami is a different place from what I knew, but it was wonderful. But
the people you knew in your life, Capote and Hemingway and all the famous people, you never let yourself get conceited. You're so down to earth. You've taken it just as a part of life. That's what I've admired about you. You could be so arrogant, and you're not. You're so down to earth.
I learned humility because throughout like the 60s and 70s, I was at all these gatherings and I was the only person there who was not famous. And who didn't have
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, I've had someone, like when I first met Susan Hayward, she said, and young man, what do you do?
What do I do, huh?
I said, oh, I'm a newspaper reporter. And she said, oh,
Right.
she says, I hate newspaper reporters. And I said, no, I'll be kind. But
Well, let me go and ask you a question. I never knew this. Oh, we have some thunder happening here in South Florida. You hear it? Yeah, some thunder.
the fake news will have an atomic attack.
Oh, I don't allow fake news in here. When you found that home in Staten Island, how long have you been living there, and what made you purchase that one?
Well, it was in the late 60s, and New York was where I lived, in a beautiful penthouse apartment. It was an invasion. It was the era of the hippies, and they were breaking into the homes because hundreds and really thousands of people arrived in New York, and they had no way of supporting themselves. So people were just getting robbed all the time. And so I thought, well, Staten Island would be a safer haven. Plus, I needed a lot of room. You know, New York apartments, even the big ones, are not that big. And so I came over here with Hazel Guggenheim, my friend, who was the sister of Peggy Guggenheim. Maybe you've been to her museum in.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
And she said, I want to show you this house and visit. So I fell in love with the place and moved over. And of course, I traveled most of the time. And then I moved everything in, and then I went to live in Morocco. But Morocco was very close to Spain. I could go to Spain in 40 minutes. And the rent at a former harem was $40 a month.
So, Darwin, you're not going to like this, but we have less than 2 minutes. And, see how it went so fast? And we're going to do this every month with you. So you just get on your horse and you're going to ride this with me.
Anita, I think you look wonderful. Please keep doing what you have been doing for the senior citizens of Florida. You're doing a damn good job, and I'm very, very proud of you.
Oh, and you're my hero, you know that. So whatever I do, I always know about what we had. I loved all the times that I was there with my husband, Bill, and you're such a great cook, and you're such a great conversationalist, and thank you very much, and thank Danforth, and we'll be back again with you another time.
Anita, you're looking wonderful. Keep it up.
You are too.
Goodbye now.
Too.
Goodbye.
Okay, goodbye.